Hello, it's Howard Rheingold.
Although social network services are a big deal today and hundreds of millions of people use social media, there are said to be around 200 million people on the Chinese social medium QQ alone. People have been using computer networks to communicate socially for quite a while. Usenet goes back to 1980, and people were communicating via ARPANET before that. In 1989, The Well, which I wrote about in my book, The Virtual Community, in 1994, had well parties in their offices. David Kennard of Inca Productions made available some of this nearly 20-year-old footage of people from The Well who met online but got together face-to-face fairly often. John Coate, also known as Tex, provided this material for me, and you can see Tex talking about well parties a little bit, and also you can see me talking about the well parties in the social media and virtual community class that I teach at Berkeley.
And then we would have these gatherings, these parties at the well office. It became a real institution, and we had one every month for quite a few years, all the time that I was there. I know that I hosted 61 of them.
The well parties, where a lot of the community started happened because one person said, you know, it's going to be Tex's birthday next week. Let's surprise him. So we organized, we got the beer, we got the popcorn, we all showed up at the well office at closing time and declared a party. And God, it was so much fun.
I found the well through an article in Computer Currents a long time ago, which had Matthew McClure in it and talked about how this was kind of a spin-off from the old Whole Earth days, and I said, ooh, I think maybe it's time to join something like that, and that's how I got on.
Well, I work for the Whole Earth Catalog, which is half owner of the well, and so I'm one of the people who's sort of been terribly addicted to the system since very early on.
Hello. Hi. Tina, Stuart. These are the people from BBC. This is Tina, also known as Onesie, and Stuart Brand, SBB.
I started off on the well when it was one conference with about 6 topics in it, which Stuart had started. And we were faced with this, what we thought then was a huge, empty hard disk. And we're told, well, let's talk about things and fill it up so that we'll have other people interested in coming and reading what we say and talking, and then they'll say smarter things than we did, and we can sit back and relax and enjoy the party, which is what happened.
My responsibility is just to keep the machine running, keep the phone lines open, and basically the people who use the well have formed the well in an image that they created just because it was what they wanted to do. You know, we didn't really have an idea what we wanted the well to be.
The well was just throwing some people and some equipment together to see what would happen. And what we knew was if we could get people who were skilled at all this stuff, hackers basically, computer programmers, and people who knew about community from other walks of life behind them, they might come together. And that turns out is all it took.
It was physically in the same place that the computer was. It was a VAX. It cost like $750,000. It had about, 16K RAM. It was really ridiculous. And a bank of modems, a room full of modems with phone lines. Of course, they were always breaking, and Cliff and John were always back there trying to get the modems working. We were always irritated because we were getting busy signals. We actually went and made physical pilgrimages to the room where the VAX was. And so we had the beer in one room and the computer in the other room, and all these people who had been talking all day, every day, never seen each other, were seeing each other for the first time. It was just tremendously exciting.
Tell them you saw Howard Rheingold. Howard Rheingold. The well is a place that you can drop in on while you're sitting there at your computer at any time. See, I've been sitting in a room alone by myself for about 20 years. I'm a writer. And you find a lot of writers in bars because they get crazy doing that, and I don't want to drink in the middle of the day. I also need information, a lot of it. I need a big stream of information flowing through me. So when I found out about the well after being in my little room alone, first with my typewriter, then with my computer, I realized that I didn't have to go anywhere. I could just drop into this place and there would be things to talk about, people to meet. In fact, it's a tremendous tool for me, but it's also a good place to hang out, meet people.
Enjoyment, information, communication, contact with other people.
I've made friends, I've gotten job connections. I met my husband through the Usenet, sort of. A friend introduced us and we flirted across computer lines. And I use it as a blow-off. If TV's really boring, I log into the well and talk with people.
In general, I think, overall, people on this well, that at least the ones I've met here, and I assume it's representative people on the well, tend to be introverted. These are people sitting alone, generally, by the computer terminals. And I think that they, and I suppose I have to include myself, as I've heard myself described that way, that it's a way that people often express themselves in ways that they might not verbally face-to-face with other people.
Well, it's kind of a cross between a telephone conversation and a letter. So you end up being in some ways more personal because you can't see who you're talking to, and other times it's kind of a strange dynamic. I mean, people can get really intimate online, and then when there's a real face-to-face party like this, people are kind of amazed at who they've been communicating with.
I suppose it's a lot like conversation at a party like this. You're in a conversation that's very interesting, to sort of find a way to wander off to somewhere where it is a little more interesting. It's very easy to do that on the well without giving offense, because nobody knows you were there if you don't join in.
It's subversive, because it's a place where people can think for themselves, and that's always a big problem. And it's subversive in the sense that you really can't define who the population is without making a generalization that cuts a lot of people out of it. But there's a certain percentage of people in the well who are what I would call intelligent misfits who've made it work for ourselves. And there's kind of a perception in the world that back in the 60s, people tried to do things differently, but they're all stockbrokers now, or dead, or whatever. But there are people who still believe that it's worth experimenting with, trying to find new kinds of communities, new things to do with the world, try to move it forward. And this is a place where we can connect with one another and make real plans and do things. And that kind of connectivity is really in itself subversive.
I've completely changed my career path since I logged onto the well, I guess, 2 years ago, something like that.
The well is, it's not a general purpose audience, it's a pretty relatively small section of society. And getting to meet people who are into that same kind of mindset is the main thing.
I met a member of the Grateful Dead on the well, the drummer, Mickey Hart. Now I started working for him. So this was a year ago. I was working on a book he's been in the process of writing, and it's called The Edge of Magic. So I worked on that for about 3 months, and that was great because I'm a deadhead, and it's a great place for deadheads to be.
It substitutes, in my case, for watching television. I don't own a television, or a radio, actually. And kind of my motto is that if I can't program it, then I'm not interested in it. So I call my time on the well playing television. I spend between 20 and 30 hours a month on the well, which is less than the average American spends watching television. The average American spends about 100 hours a month watching television.
I don't think the well is doing what it's doing with any given purpose. But the way I see it, it's going to be a real important kind of phenomenon. I think there are going to be a lot of communities like this because one of the problems in the world is there are no more neighborhoods in the city and neighbors and things like that. But the feeling of the well is that you've got a lot of neighbors and you don't go to borrow a cup of sugar, but you get some information. And information is probably the sugar of the late 20th century.
We began to have these parties every month, and they continue to this day. So that all of this stuff about writing about virtual community and cyberculture and is it really a community and collective action and social capital, things that are now in the syllabus, that came much, much later. These were things that we were experiencing that we felt were very important. We thought it was going to be important, but we didn't think of ourselves as being important.